for me, I was always trying to represent. That's something that I always thought about when I was coming up in wrestling. I always wanted to represent for my people. Stone Cold and I, we, had our job, and the task at hand was to go out there and, make Stone Cold look good. It was called a payoff. It was time for me to pay it off.
Yeah.
And when you do that, I say you got to go all the way out. When they roll the cameras, that's pretty much, they just said action and we went to work. The old baby oil. The baby oil does tricks, to the eyes, make you look a whole lot better.
Obviously, you're good with football. What's your first memory of Andre Johnson?
Oh, man, wrecking shop, man, on the field in Houston, man.
Sometimes you have to maybe chop somebody or slap somebody up a little bit to kind of get them in order.
I've slapped several guys, many guys, just to wake them up.
Man, tell us a little bit, what got you into wrestling, Book?
Just looking for something to do, man. I went to prison, actually, when I was 21. And when I got out, I was, wondering what I was going to do. And my brother actually got me a job at this warehouse. And I worked there for, a while. And I proved, that I could, get back in society. And what was really, really cool about it, I was working, like I said, at this warehouse for this guy. My brother had the opportunity to go to wrestling school. I didn't have the money, but proving myself to this guy, working for him for like a year straight, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. He paid for my tuition to go to the wrestling school. And man, it was a blessing. It was a blessing. It was $3,000, $3,000 that I didn't have. And the rest is pretty much kind of like history,
It's funny that you kind of say that. You talk about going to prison and going, working at the storage company. I seen on your Wikipedia, well, when you go into their wrestling school, it kind of took, from what they said, your gangster background and kind of put that character into, who you later became on into wrestling.
Well, I pretty much, played my character, pretty much throughout wrestling. It was easy to be myself, as a kid, growing up in Houston, with a name like Booker, you can imagine I got into a lot of fights because kids called me Booger. Right. So I was always fighting as a kid. So I just took those life experiences and brought them to the wrestling ring as far as real emotion, rely on something that perhaps have happened to me to bring those emotions out. I was a kid who, I didn't like school. I used to skip school a lot, and I used to go watch those karate movies down at the Majestic OST down in the Majestic downtown. And those movies, man, I used to morph into those characters in those movies, and they made me, it was like an escape, but it was so real, and to be able to use those characters that I watched as myself, in the wrestling, I actually it worked out perfectly.
Was there ever a moment where you was just like, damn, like I made it, like, or you felt like the moment was like super, super huge?
The moment I really thought I made it was, because, I was a kid from the street. I never really made a lot of money or anything like that. When I got into professional wrestling, I didn't think it was a moneymaker or anything like that. I was doing it because it was just an escape. It wasn't on my radar, like I say, as far as me going on and doing what I've done in wrestling. I would have done it for free. I've done it for free. And then one day, we got the phone call, and our first contract was like $75,000, and I was like, wow, you can get paid this kind of money to actually wrestle. I think that's what I was like, we all right, we've made it, because that 75 grand for me, man, that was a huge jump from making like 20 grand a year to making 75 a year, and that was the starting rate. And I was like, man, I knew it was so many more guys making so much more money than I was making. And I was like, man, by the end of the day, I'll be making, more than those guys. But now when I first started making some money in wrestling, I felt like I had made it, I knew the sky was the limit though. I knew I could make so much more, but it wasn't about the money per se. It was just about me having a job.
Right.
Me
Right.
finding myself. I think that's when I feel like I had made it. And just to give you a little backstory, I was working at that warehouse, right? And I was working 6 days a week. All right, but my boss would give me time off to go do some shows when I need it, right? So I had a trip to go to Japan. It was the first time I had ever been on a plane before, right? It was the first time I'd ever been on a plane, seriously. And I'm on a 15-hour flight to Japan. And I was like, but it was crazy, right? But I was working that 6 day a week job. But when I got to Japan, all those people knew me because I was on this show on ESPN. So it was like I was a star there. And then I was like, man, I came back home. And then I had another trip and I went to Korea. And then I went to the Virgin Islands. And when I went to the Virgin Islands, it was really sick because the brother was like really over like Rover. Everybody on the island knew who I was, And I was
Right.
like,
Right.
wow, this is freaking cool. And I was thinking in my mind, I was like, man, maybe I'm going to have to quit my job. It was stupid, you know what I mean? So it was just finding myself and realizing that I found my purpose in life, and it was professional wrestling. It saved me.
We're not in the wrestling world, so we don't really understand, what comes with that. But was it hard, because you had been, think about it, you're 11-time tag team champion. So to branch off into your own thing, how was that, like, the shift with that?
Well, my brother and I, we got into this. We started out as singles wrestlers. He was the Super Collider, and I was GI Bro, America's
Yeah.
Greatest Hero. but my brother had a tryout one day in Dallas, and I just tagged along with him, and they were looking for a tag team, specifically a black tag team. And they asked my brother, "Have you guys ever tagged before?" And we was like, "Yeah." We never tagged before. And next thing you know, the Ebony experience was created. But it was our foot in the door. And when you get a chance to get your foot in the door, you got to take it. So we say, let's take this, run with it, and run with it as far as we could. We never imagined, becoming, WCW's greatest tag team, most reigning tag team champions in the history of the game. But it was awesome, traveling down the road with my brother. My brother gave me that something that I needed. I knew he was watching my backs, and I could just go out there and just let it all hang out. I could be myself, with my brother watching my back. Always been that way since I was a kid. And then my brother got hurt. He tore a muscle in the bottom of his foot, and I started doing singles wrestling. But my brother always used to tell me, man, you're prolific, man. You're better than all these guys. Just go out there and do your thing, and that's what I did. But it was a seamless transition going from tag team wrestling to singles wrestling. I always wondered, how good I was. I always wanted to test myself, as a singles wrestler to see if I was, championship material. And I got the opportunity one time by one of the guys, his name was Rick Martel. He was going to become the television champion this night, and he's from Canada, and he thought he was just coming to do some promos. So he didn't bring his gear. He left his boots and everything at home. So they said, "Man, we got to switch the title tonight. So we're going to put it on Booker." And I was like, "Oh man, They put the title on me, you're never gonna get it back." That was
Right.
my thought process, So they put the title on me that night, and boom, that's when everything started clicking, man. That's when everything started, really happening for me. 6-time television champions later, you know what I mean? Totally changing the game of television championship reign, So it was for me, it was something I was looking forward to trying. Singles, and just to, like I say, see how good I really was.
You got your catchphrase, can you dig it? Sucker. Like when you watch wrestling, like Stone Cold, he got the ultimate interest. Ric Flair, he got his thing. How does that kind of go into coming about? Who puts the thought into that? Who comes up with the idea of it? How does that kind of come about? Because I think you really arrive when everywhere you go, people can say, as soon as they see you, the first thing most people probably say, just to kind of break the ice, can you dig it, and they know that you're going to kind of give it back to them a little bit. So just how did that come about?
Now, for me, I was a kid, man, who loved Shaft. And Richard Roundtree, back in the day, and he used to always say, "Can you dig it?" And that catchphrase, for me is definitely something that you need, for the fans, to actually, become a part of. I don't know how the rest of those guys, found their catchphrase, but for me, I was just a street kid trying to be like Shaft, and raising the roof back in the day was, one of the signatures as well. But nah, man, those are things that you gotta, try to find yourself relatable. For me, I was always trying to represent. That's something that I always thought about when I was coming up in wrestling. I always wanted to represent for my people. I always wanted them to look at me and say, "Man, that's our guy right there," because I was that same guy when Junkyard Dog was coming up. I was like, "Man, that's the guy that's the guy I'm rooting
Right.
for. That's my dog right there." So for me, I was always, trying to find that something that I could connect with my people, but I didn't want to alienate anybody at the same time. I wanted everybody to be a part of that journey, but I still wanted to make sure I represented for my people, just because I knew it was going to be some young black wrestler that came up behind me, and I needed to show them how the game is done. These are the protocols. These are the steps in order to get to that next level. So I think that's what I've always been thinking about. From my name having a. I tell my students, you got to have a championship name if you want to be champion. And I always say Booker T. Oh yeah, that's a championship name. So for me, everything has been it's all been by design. I don't think I've slipped on a banana peel, in this business or anything like that. I've always known exactly what routes, to take to try to get me to that next level.
Was there like any animosity or anything like from switching from WCW to going to the WWE? Because I know certain wrestlers wrestle on certain networks and things of that nature.
There's a huge difference, going from WCW to WWE, just because, it was a real rivalry, really was. And when WWE bought the company, the war was over. They got a chance to plant the flag and say, "Hey, man, we won this war. It's over." And everybody that's going to come from WCW over here, they're going to have a rough ride. We're going to bury. They wanted to bury everyone. I thought coming from WCW. I mean, and for me, if it was vice versa, it probably would have been the same way. You know what I mean? But for me, I thought about that, and I thought about it really, really hard as far as what it was going to take for me to make it in the WWE. And all the accolades, the 4 world championships to 10, tag team championships to 6, television championships, the United States championship run, all of that stuff, I was willing to leave it behind and start all over fresh. You know, um, I don't know you, Andre. You guys know. Both of you guys know. I got to say, you got to know. You got to be able to make it in the locker room before you can make it, on the field,
Right.
right? You got to
Right.
be able to make it in the locker room before you make it in the ring. It's just that simple. So I said, I'm gonna go in here and show these guys that I am worthy to be in this locker room. I'm worthy to be on this television show, and I'm willing to compete with anybody in the world and show exactly how good I am. So I took that approach, and then after a while, I remember one day I came to work and I was getting ready to go to the locker room, while the wrestlers, dress at. There's so many guys in that locker room, like 50 guys. And I remember the Undertaker saying, "Hey man, why don't you come dress over here with us?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, I made it." You know what I mean? I'm good. You know what I mean? So it was one of
Yeah.
those type of things. But I was
Right.
willing to work for it. But I knew the protocols and the steps that I was going to have to take to actually get there as well.
I guess I like to ask you about just some of the egos, in wrestling. Like, my age, my era coming up watching it, everybody was a superstar, it seemed like. So, everybody was a superstar. I had to get to the house just to watch it, just to see what's going on, from the storytelling to everything that it had going on, just to keep, your attention and locked in on it, the storylines each and every week, looking forward to what's going to happen. And just talking about, once you become a champion like you are yourself, obviously all the other guys that has the same type of stardom, how do they go about it trying to, get that championship belt or get to the top? Because I know it's got to be a grind, working your way from the bottom to the top.
Yeah, it is, but we've got a saying in our business, the guy that's at the top, the guy that's the champion, we work for him. You know what I mean? He's the guy that's destroying the house. You know what I mean? So we got to make sure we do everything, proper for that guy. And like you say, there are a lot of egos. There are some guys that get in that position that take it, to the extreme. They go to their head, you know. And a lot of those guys don't stick around very long. For me, I remember winning my first world heavyweight championship, right? And I came to the building, and there's two guys in front of me, and they took a quick left, and they parked right in the, right behind the building. And when I came up, they told me to go park in the parking garage. And I was like, man, okay, I'm the champion. So I was so mad. I was so mad. I walked in the building, and I told one of the guys, I said, hey, man, follow me, man. I want you to see something. And I went in the building, and I screamed so loud. I said, who the F is security? I want to know who the security is. What is security? And they came out, and I said, I want to know this. I said, I want to know why such as, I'm not going to mention their name, why they park, behind the building, and the champ, not Booker T, not me, the champ has to park in the parking garage. And they go, oh hell, you know what I mean? So they got everything. They was like, oh man, we got to fix this. We got to fix this. And I remember they came to me and they asked me, hey, Book, you the champ, man. You want to get you your own locker room. Gonna get your own locker room, all the shows, and whatnot. And I said, man, screw that. I don't want my own locker room. I don't want to alienate myself from the boys. I said, I tell you what, get me a 50-inch TV so I could play Madden on the road at every place we go. And they did it. They got me a 50-inch, and everywhere we went, we played PlayStation.
There it is. There it is. You talk about Madden. Obviously, you're good with football. What's your first memory of Andre Johnson?
Oh man, wrecking shop, man, on the field in Houston, man. I just felt so bad for him, just because I knew we wasn't getting no rings. You know what I mean? And he was out there working so hard, man. He was a Hall of Famer. He was a champion in his own right. And I just felt like, he should have been on a championship team at the same time. Not that, not looking down on my city or anything like that, but you was putting in a lot of work at that time, man. I just felt like you deserved so much more.
That was definitely something different. I tell people all the time, like me coming from Miami, where we won so many games, then coming to a new franchise, that was probably the biggest struggle, because you're not getting the wins that you're used to getting. So that was definitely a great, I would say a great learning experience for me. Tell us what fueled you? What made you Booker T? What made you the person that you are, the wrestler that you were?
We already know about the 75,000 now.
Oh man, I think that just goes back a long way, man. That kid that grew up, in the city, man, and I didn't have much, growing up. No one never asked me, as a kid, what I want to be when I grow up. And I never had that question asked to me or anything like that. I was trying to survive. And I lost my mother when I was young, at 14. I lost my father when I was 10 months old. You know what I mean? So I think the drive came from that photo that I saw of my dad. My dad didn't leave us. He passed away. But I always had this photo of my dad. It's a strong photo too, man. He's got the hat, you know what I mean? The Dobbs on, he's got the flannel on. He's looking so freaking cool. He looks strong. And I wanted to live up to that photo. I really wanted to live up to that photo. And when I finally found myself in a position, I always knew I was going to be something in life. Even though I quit school in high school, even though I went to prison, as a young kid, I always knew I was going to be something. I always had a great work ethic. I would work my fingers to the bone, no matter what. So finally, getting in this position, I felt like it was not just me being in this position, but what I could do in this position. I think about that all the time. I was that trouble kid that no one could tell me anything. No one could get me on the right track. But if this guy right here behind me, Muhammad Ali, if he would have told me the same thing that everybody else was telling me, bam, I would have straightened up, boom, and I would have got the job done without no question. I knew I would have. And now I'm in that same position. And that's where I think the work, ethic come from. Me wanting to be that guy, to be a beacon of light for some kid that just one day just need a pat on the back, and being told that, hey, you can do this. You can get
Right.
this done. I
Yeah.
was that kid who always just wanted a pat on the back and was told that I could get it done. I never had that. And I think that's what drove me to be the guy who I am today.
And I think a lot of kids now sometimes they do need that push, and they, you know, coming from where we come from, sometimes we don't have, like I told people, I never had no professional football player or professional anything come speak to me when I was in school. So that was something that always motivated me to be like, you know what, I'm gonna make it, and I can come back to my community or, my neighborhood and show kids that you can make it from those type of places. I know you had to be where you are a Hall of Famer, champion, and everything you've accomplished. Have you ever had anybody doubt you about wrestling? Because I'm sure somebody had to come to you like you getting in a wrestling game, and they probably was like, "That's not going to work." Have you had any doubters?
Yeah, man. When I first got into business, a lot of my friends told me I was stupid, what I was doing, because you got to understand, I was doing this wrestling thing, and you didn't have a whole lot of black, guys trying to get into wrestling. That's one thing. And I was literally like going from one side of town. I would literally like sneak all the way to the other side of town and do the wrestling thing with the white guys. Yeah, like it's just doing this thing, but it was fun. It was fun. It was escape. But I had people doubt me, but that's just part of the game. One thing about this life, you can't lie to yourself. You can't lie to yourself. You can't look in the mirror and it tells you something different than what you are actually seeing. I always knew how good I was. Just like you. You're on the field, you know how good you are. You know you better than the rest of these guys. When you know it, you know it. You know, when I got into professional wrestling, it was like deja vu. It was like a place that I had been before in another life. It wasn't something that I really had to think about. It was something that was just second nature. But for me, making it in this business, I always knew I was going to be. I always knew I was going to be great. I, I don't want to. I don't want to look at. I don't want to say that like I'm, better than anyone else or anything like that. I knew how good God put me here for a reason. God did all of this. I've had very little to do with this. I mean, God put me in this place to actually do what I'm doing right now. And you say, being in that position to give back. I started my wrestling school 20 years ago. 20 years ago, just so I could do what I wish would have, I would have. I wish I could have, had a little piece of it when I was coming up. And it's more than a wrestling school; it's a ministry. It's a mentorship. It's like you say, patting those kids on the back and telling them they can do it, as well as telling them, hey, what the hell you think you're doing?
Right.
You think you're gonna get somewhere? You got to actually really be able to get down and dirty with these kids that's coming up today. So for me, this journey, man, I just turned 60 March 1st. Okay, and I feel like I don't think about the past. I think about the past very, very little. All of the accolades and all that stuff. It's about the future, man. It's about the next generation of these young kids that's growing up that's going to take over the world and how they're going to look at it. You know what I mean? That's my that's what drives me. That's what keeps me up at night.
You talk about your transition, because I know when you watch wrestling, I always say if Booker T, when he retired, then all of a sudden, 2 months down the road, you coming back up. Now you, like talk about that part. Is there like a phase that you guys have to go through to where they keep you guys implementing in, or is like you just call it quits and you just done?
You know what? Wrestlers never done, man. We're not done until we die. We put in the ground. I was just in a match a month or so ago, man. And I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Then, you get that bug, and you say, how you gonna tell a man he can't go out and still do it? For me, I'm a coach at the same time, and I'm a leader, and I feel like sometimes I gotta go out there and show these kids how it's supposed to be done. Even though my wife, like, baby, what are you thinking? You know, you need to stay out of that damn ring or something just pop. You know, which you can with no problem. But no, man, we never retire, man. I'm always feeling froggy to get back in the ring just one time. When I can't do it, that's when I'm not going to do it anymore. When I just can't do it, but I can still cut the grass and I'm still doing it.
So I know you just said like sometimes you have to come out and show these young guys how to do it. When you're in character and you're in the match, is it sometimes you have to maybe chop somebody or slap somebody up a little bit to kind of get them in order?
I've slapped several guys, many guys, just to wake them up. And
Right.
sometimes, it put them in a state to where they're, reluctant to wake up.
Right.
Because they think it's real too, but that's my thing, man, with professional wrestling. And I think that's why I was really, really good at it. When I went to a movie when I was a kid, or even as an adult, when I left that movie and it was a really, really good movie, man, I felt a certain way inside. Like I said, I used to go watch those karate movies, and if it was good, I would leave. I'd be making all kind of sounds, chopping my homeboy on the way out. It was really, really good. Or if you see a really, really good movie, Academy Award winning movie, and then the credits start rolling, and it was such a good movie, a tear might roll out of your eye, and you start clapping, encore, bravo. It's a movie, but it made you feel a certain way. It made you clap. It made that tear come out of your eye. For me, wrestling has always been that. I'm looking to try to make a real tear come out of somebody's eye if I'm the good guy. All right. And if I'm the bad guy, man, I want somebody to come over the rail and try to fight me because they've got that emotionally caught up into something that they know when they paid their money to see it, what it was. So for me, that's what I've always loved, about wrestling, the Shakespeare, the Romeo and Juliet, Phantom of the Opera. That's what I call it. And it's real, as real it can be.
How tough is it, man? Like just the recovery part of like, you could be in Houston tonight, Dallas tomorrow. Like how is the recovery part of like getting your body right and stuff to be able to go back out and perform on a night-to-night basis like
It's
that?
tough. It's so tough, man. It's so tough, especially for the guys that really want to live that rock star life. You know what I
Right.
mean? When you want to live, I mean, it's hard to not, I'm serious, man. It's hard to not want to live that rock star life too. You know what I mean? When you traveling around the country, you get first class treatment, whatnot, staying out partying and drinking, the women, yeah, it's hard, man. It really is. So for me, I had a system, to get through this thing. I did not want to be one of those guys that fell off. I didn't want one of those guys to be a statistic. Say, man, he was good, but you know what I mean. I didn't want to be that guy. So for me, I wasn't the guy out in the bar drinking all night. I was taking a hot bath, getting ready for the next show and whatnot. I never drank. It's true story. Never drank the night before I had to wrestle throughout my whole career. Off any other time, I'm drinking, bro. But
Right.
the night before I had to wrestle, I would not do it. Just like, just say, for instance, weight training, literally with the iron. I would never train with the iron when I was on the road. I would only train with the iron when I was at home. So when I was on the road, I thought about only three things. That was resting, uh, eating properly, and performing at my peak. On the road, I could do push-ups. I get the rubber band, you know what I mean? And then, work on that a little bit, as well as the old baby oil. The baby oil does tricks, to the eyes, make you look a whole lot better. So for me, that was my regiment. And I try to talk to these young guys today as far as you got to be able to separate this thing if you planning on making it, throughout, because it is rough, and injury is something not a matter of if, but when, and the one thing about this business, time off is your worst enemy.
Earlier, you spoke a little bit about, you like to react. What was your first reaction when you seen Andre whooping up on Cortland Finnegan in that football game?
Hey man, I'm always down for some action, man. I like it. It's like a hockey game when they throw the sticks down and just go run and fight. That's what you come to see.
Out of all the matches you've had, what would you say was your biggest one or your most favorite?
That's really a hard question, man. It's really a hard question. I don't know why, but because maybe I just never really thought like that. You know what I mean? Wrestling for me, it's always been a job, and for me, I never. Of course, winning the world title was a great moment. Winning my first world title, it was a moment. But honestly, man, I swear to God, I never really think like that because it's always just been a job for me. It's just like, it's like literally like a 9 to 5. I'm putting my boots on and I go to work and I go do it and I want to come home and I want to forget about it until I have to go back. I never thought about the world championship. I really never did until it happened. I was like, man, there's no way they're gonna give me the world title. It's not gonna happen, you know what I mean? So I just totally didn't think that way. I just thought about being the best in the locker room. You be the best in the locker room, stuff happens for you. You know what I mean? So when it happened, it was a very, very topsy-turvy night. I didn't know if I was going to win. It was a lot of drama going on. It was like the most drama-filled night in professional wrestling. And then I find myself, 10 minutes before having to perform, um, winning the World Heavyweight Championship. There again, I found out about 10 minutes beforehand. And boom, I had to go out and do it. And I was like, wow, this is a surreal moment. I'm winning a world title. And I win the world title, man. And it was a moment that there again, I questioned myself also just because as a black man, I wondered was, the wrestling world, ready for a black champion? What are they going to cheer for me? What kind of fanfare I was going to get? So I didn't even go out that night. I just stayed in my room and I don't know. I went to sleep and I woke up the next day and I realized, man, everybody partied for me that night, man. Everybody was drunk on Booker T that next night, man. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So nah, man, I think perhaps, that would be the night I realized, man, this is it. I'm the world heavyweight champion.
When I was playing, I kind of had that same mentality. I never would kind of, dwell on the past. What was it something? Because like for me, I would we would always they would give us like a 2-minute warning before we would go out, to warm up on the field. But I would never put my shoulder pads on until I got that 2-minute warning. What was something that right before you knew you was going out to have a match, what was that thing that like clicked? Because I know when I put my shoulder pads on, it was time to go. Like I wouldn't put my shoulder pads on until it was time to go out to the field. So what was your thing or something that just like, boom, like it's go time, like we got to get in go mode?
I normally was in go mode every show, with my 2 Red Bull and my jump rope. Once I pulled the jump rope out, I felt like Muhammad Ali. I swear to God, man, I felt like I could float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, man. And I could jump. I could do that jump rope for 20 minutes, before I would get ready to go out, and I would be full of sweat. I would be sweating so bad before I go out, and that's why I say for me, I ask not my students, but a lot of guys that I work with, I say, when you go out of that curtain, when you see that guy that you're working with, how many times have you really wanted to just kick his ass? And if they tell me, nah, I don't think like that, they think in the wrong way. For me, every time I went out the curtain, I wanted to beat the guy up. I want to, he was going to feel some pain. I was just listening to an interview earlier today on YouTube. I'll mention the guy's name. His name's Paul London. And he was working me in a match, and I shot him off the ropes. As soon as he came off the ropes, bang, I hit him, and I broke his nose. What I say is he turned his head the wrong way. It's gonna hurt a little bit. It's gonna be as real as it possibly could be. So for me, once I get in that zone, I'm going to be willing to give it as well. I'm going to be willing to take it as well. If I whack you, whack me back. That's the way it's got to be for the people. All right. It's good for TV. All right. We'll apologize later on in the back, especially if I break your nose. I apologize about it. But nah, man, once I'm in that zone, once I pull that jump rope out, I was ready to go, man.
The grocery store fight with Stone Cold. That wasn't no short fight neither. That went on for a little minute.
That was a match. That's what that was. It was a match. Yeah. That's crazy. What's crazy about that the Stone Cold Booker T fight in the grocery store is people come up to me, every time I go to conventions, I do like signings and whatnot, and they go, man, my favorite match was you and Stone Cold in the grocery store. And I'm like, it wasn't a match. What are you talking about? Get my ass whooped in the grocery store. What are you talking about? That was one of my favorite moments. In wrestling, you got to be able to laugh at yourself. You got to be able to entertain yourself. For me, it's all about the performance and how grandiose we can make these performances. Stone Cold and I, we had our job, and the task at hand was to go out there and make Stone Cold look good. It was called the payoff. It was time for me to pay it off. Yeah. And when you do that, I say you got to go all the way out. When they roll the cameras, that's pretty much, they just said action and we went to work. It was one camera shoot. We didn't have a cut or anything like that. It was boom, go, and we got it done. Did anybody tell us what to say? No, they didn't. It was all ad libs. And all the ad libs from Stone Cold, it just shows that he watched a lot of television when he was a kid. A bunch of commercials, because he had a commercial for me every time he would do something, And it was amazing. It was amazing. I was crying at the end of it. And I'm still telling him, I'm gonna get you, man. I'm gonna get you. You know what I mean? I'm gonna get you.
Man, it's funny. You talk about that match, whatever you want to call it, match or whatever. But me and J. Joe, we watched it earlier today, and when you talk about crying, laughing, like, bro, that you watching it today, it felt like it happened today. Like, man, the way y'all did that. And when you put him in the cooler and he looked back, he was drinking the milk, bro. Me and J. Joe was crying laughing about that today, man.
I was begging, I was bargaining, I was trying to do anything to get out of that ass whooping. Right. I was trying to bribe, anything I could do. And when I went back and watched it, I go, man, this is some really funny stuff. But like I say, man, that's what it's always been about for me, is going out and having fun. This business has been so fun for me. Over 30 years I've been in the business, and I swear, man, it still feels like it just started. It still feels like I'm just, like yesterday. That's how much fun I've had, in this business. I got into business at 25 years old, and I say it all the time. I have not worked a day since I was 25.
That's pretty special to say y'all ad-lib that though, man, because that was some stuff there.
Yeah.
Yeah. One take, bro. One take. Boom, and that was it, bro. I was like all messed up out of that. After that, man, I had so much freaking flour and eggs in my hair. I was like, what the heck's going on? But I swear, man, I was willing to go all out. It was nothing, limited as far as that shoot go. I was like, bro, whatever you want to take me, let's just go there.
Like you said, you watched it and you laughed, like you cry laughing. Like I was crying laughing watching it myself. But how hard is it to actually go through it and not break character? Like, cause I don't think, me personally, I could have did that and not laughed. Like, just going through that whole thing.
Yeah, I think I'm just laughing on the inside. On the inside, I'm laughing the whole time. I always said, like with wrestling, you can never do what you want to do. You got to do what the fans want to see. So for me, it's always been like an out-of-body experience. And I can watch myself and entertain myself and be totally in character at the same time. That sounds really, really strange. It really does. but I've always been able to, like, just say, for instance, when I was wrestling in a match, I would always be in the front row. I would always be watching, and I would always do in the ring what the fan wanted to see opposed to what I wanted to do.
Since we're on GOAT Talk, who's your greatest wrestlers? Give me your 5 greatest wrestlers of all time. No particular order, just your.
I put JYD in there because he was the guy that inspired me to be great, because he was definitely one of the greatest African American champions that ever did it. Ricky Steamboat was the guy that I loved coming up, just because his in-ring prowess. Macho Man Savage was definitely one of my guys that I really look to emulate and want to be like.
I can see that actually.
I say with that.
I said I can see that. Like you say, you like emulated Macho Man a little bit.
Oh man, he was definitely a part of my King run.
Yeah.
Mr. Perfect. Man, I used to love the way Mr. Perfect went out and performed. Man, he was such a great performer. Nobody better. And then of course Ric Flair. I got to put Ric Flair as being the guy that I really I emulated Ric Flair in so many different ways outside of the ring. I never was one of the guys that emulated his wrestling or anything like that. But Ric Flair, he always dressed a certain way, he always looked a certain way, and he always carried himself a certain way. And
just want to say thank you, man, for coming on here with us today at GOAT Talk, man. We always run into each other at the game, so I'm sure I'll see you soon at some point. And just want to say thank you, man, for coming on and taking time with us today.
Oh, hey, man, appreciate you guys, man. Appreciate you guys. Anytime you need me, man, I'm always there. Like you say, bro, we hook up. We hook up.
Definitely.
Most definitely.
All right, brother. Take care.
Appreciate y'all.